Hello, guys, and welcome to Let's Talk About It with me. Now, about 2 years ago, I did an online show. I think I ran 4 or 5 episodes. At the time, we called it On the Couch. At the time, I was based in Hong Kong. Circumstances made me move from Hong Kong to the UK. And then afterwards, things just got in the way, and we never really went with it. And I thought, look, as we're nearing election season 2023, what better way to add my voice than a vlog just like the last time? I didn't really want to do it on the couch, so I thought I'll just call it Let's Talk About It. This week's topic that I really want us to discuss and talk about is one it's intrigued me for pretty much the last 3-4 years. I'd say pretty much for the last few years that I've sort of gained some prominence. The topic of online hate, the topic of online toxicity. Now, the key thing that's really made me want to talk about this is there's a Kenyan blogger, a Kenyan lady, she's actually a vlogger. She does these travel videos. From her account, I think she says she's been to several African countries. A few weeks ago, if not over a month, she arrived in Zimbabwe, and one of the ladies at the airport terminal was sort of demanding a bribe, wasn't going to let her in, was saying that Kenyans weren't allowed in the country. It was a bit of a disaster, pretty messy. I think she got part of it on film. It didn't reflect well for immigration officers at Robert Mugabe Airport. It didn't reflect well for Zimbabwe as a country. One, they were abusive, they were xenophobic, and they were pretty much corrupt. They were demanding a bribe. So that really, that stuck out, and it attracted condemnation across the board. You had different people in government promising to look at it, political activists saying, look, this is what's been happening for a while. Now, fast forward a few weeks down the line, what's then happened is this lady's now been to different places. I think she's been to Mbare, she's been to Vic Falls, all around the country, making videos such as these. And these videos haven't really gone down well with quite a significant number of people online, especially YouTube, on Twitter. She has had to eventually do a thread responding to a lot of negative hate. She's being accused of working for the government. People have said that she's a spy, she's been paid, she's a propagandist, the government is funding her lifestyle. A lot of people just bashed her, and a lot of it had to do with why did she link up with social media personalities like Madam Boss, for example, who are linked to the government, or I say to be working with the government, and it was all just politics. You're promoting Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF wants you to whitewash the country's image. And she didn't take kindly to it. And I think in her thread, she mentioned things like, she doesn't know the politics of the country. She doesn't hate Zimbabwe. She didn't like the experience she had at the border, but she did say that she's had the same experiences in other countries. But the people she's met afterwards on the ground have been frankly and fairly warm. They've treated her with respect. She's had an amazing experience. She's liked the sunsets. She's liked the views. But that's really not going down well. She's attracted quite a lot of abuse. What made me want to talk about this was I get why a lot of people are frustrated, with the way things are in Zimbabwe. I just don't get why this has to be extended to a tourist or someone doing travel videos. Why I say this is, number one, when white tourists come from South Africa, from England, from the USA, and they take pictures in Zimbabwe, Paris Hilton was in Zimbabwe, do we abuse them and say they've been bought by ZANU-PF? Do we say, why are you promoting the country on your platform, or whatever it is, or wherever it is that they post? Number one. Number two, how do you expect a tourist to show up and meddle in domestic politics of a country? For example, if you're coming to Zimbabwe from here, from the UK, the advice you get is that stay away from political dialogue, stay away from political gatherings, avoid them at all costs, because in the past, foreigners who've landed as tourists and gotten involved in the domestic issues of Zimbabwe have found themselves in quite some hot water. And if I'm coming to see the sunset in Vumba or the Eastern Highlands, why should I have to care about which party people support? I've been to a lot of countries. I was in Hong Kong at a time when things were pretty messy, when there were demonstrations all around the country. I didn't film at a few gatherings, but I didn't have a side. I really enjoyed my time there without really getting involved in what was happening. I've been to Kenya, I've been in Zambia, I've been in Malawi, I've been here in the UK, I've been in Thailand, I've been in Dubai. I might pass on maybe a comment here and there, but at the time, I'm there for the business of the day, and I don't really get involved in the politics that happens there. And I'm not even a tourist, I'm a journalist. So sometimes it could be my job to be in a place and know stuff and pass comments about stuff. But should we really burden people who are coming from far off tourists to say, hey, look, you need to know which party people belong to before you talk to them. You need to be careful who you associate with. I mean, she's running a travel blog. I mean, for crying out loud, it's a travel blog. Her business is those sunsets, those sunrises, the water in Vic Falls, the gardens, or the botanical gardens, or the forests. That's her business. But I also think that this is a bit indicative of a wider problem that we've had or we're having, generally as Zimbabweans with regards to our communication online. Steve Harvey, for example, I think he came to Zimbabwe some years ago. He put up a tweet. My word, he was abused. It was incredible. And if I'm correct, I think he ended up deleting the tweet. And I thought that's pretty unfortunate. Why? Because if Steve Harvey markets Victoria Falls, he's not marketed Emerson Mnangagwa. He's not marketed ZANU-PF. He's just marketed Vic Falls. The tourists that come to Vic Falls, for example, they spend more money on the locals than they actually do on the government. Yeah, they pay tax. Yeah, they pay money to I think it's Parks and Wildlife to access Vic Falls or wherever it is that they visit. But outside of that, the airtime they buy from vendors is benefiting the people on the ground, who could be MDC or could be ZANU-PF. The food that they buy, the hotels where they stay, the staff that's working in the scullery, the staff that's working in housekeeping, the chefs, people in the restaurants where they buy drinks, where they buy beers, pretty much they interact with the local economy, and the exchange of money there isn't necessarily benefiting the government or benefiting people who are linked to ZANU-PF. This Kenyan lady, for example, who her audience isn't as international as Steve Harvey, but she's got quite a very big regional audience. At least within her country, she's quite popular. She has the capacity to attract maybe not 1 million tourists, but maybe 10, maybe 20, maybe 30. And when those people come in, the income that they bring into the country or their expenditure when they're in the country is somebody else's income. Now, in economics, it's something that they call the negative multiplier effect, right? Which is, if I lose my job today, I'm unable to send my kids to school. I'm unable to buy tomatoes, buy onions, pay for my parking, buy fuel. All those things that I'm unable to pay for or do, they actually deprive somebody else of income. So my loss of a job means the tomato vendor down the street in Harare has also lost income. And when she loses income, she can't send her kids to preschool. And when she can't send her kids to preschool, the preschool will close and the teachers, they can't get paid. And if those teachers can't get paid, they also can't buy tomatoes down the road. They can't use any income. So therefore, it always affects the next person and it cascades down. And the opposite of that, being the positive multiplier effect, is that when somebody comes in with, say, $1,000 and they spend it in Chirezi or they spend it in Vumba, that $1,000 has been introduced into the Zimbabwean economy. People have, most of it is consumption. They've bought drinks, they've bought airtime, stuff that they use there. That money stays. And that money benefits the local people without regard or respect to political affiliation. Because the thing about money and the thing with the United States dollar, which is what we love to use in Zim, even though we have our own bond note or whatever currency that is, the thing is, it doesn't care which party you belong to. So harming the country's image or attacking a girl who's only promoting domestic tourism, it doesn't really affect the government much. I'll go even a step further, and this might sound a little crude, but have you ever realized that at the height of political and economic struggle in Zimbabwe, the politicians didn't suffer themselves? I don't remember a single day in 2007 or 2008 that I ever saw Robert Mugabe's motorcade in a fuel queue. There's not a day I ever saw him riding a bicycle because he didn't have petrol. It's us who didn't have petrol. I never saw any ZANU-PF MP or minister queuing for food, queuing for milli meal, or whatever it is that they could do, right? The people who were suffering were us, just ordinary folk. So going on this little battle whereby we say, look, let's spoil it and let's make sure it's pretty messed up for everybody. The majority of the damage, right, or most of the carnage is just going to hit the ordinary people. And it's not going to hit ZANU-PF people. It hits both ZANU-PF people and MDC people. But away from that, there's also something else that I picked up in that, which is the level of vulgar toxicity, the insults, and so on. And it's become a hard-hit area, being online in Zim, be it Twitter, be it YouTube, be it Facebook. And you get a lot of these comments, and it's incredibly sad, because where you could have dialogue, most of the time you're getting abuse. where there could be genuine debate or discourse between people, most of the time you're just getting insults and fights. That leaves our level of politics poorer. It leaves it a lot flatter. And I'll explain why. Because we have so many leading voices who've taken a step back from Zimbabwean politics, who just don't want to air their opinions anymore, who don't want to proffer their analysis, who don't want to engage in any sort of debate or discourse because they are just exhausted and tired of being attacked all the time. And the compound effect of that is whenever something important is happening, we always miss these key voices, these key figures. Now, I understand it's not the majority of people who are out and about abusing people. It's a very small clique, and that clique, more often than not, actually are quite louder than they are bigger. So they always appear bigger than they really are in real life. And it's unfortunate, but it does silence a lot of good voices. I know a lot of people who've really turned down. There may have been other reasons, but I know, for example, Minister Kirsty Coventry doesn't engage as much as she used to the first days. Minister Mthuli Ncube, for example, Minister of Finance, he doesn't engage at all. He just posts once in a while. People like Bettina Gapa, for example, have just sort of relaxed and chilled down. And you can't help but feel that they've been abused and bullied into silence. And the compound effect of that is Zimbabwe's politics becomes poorer. So where does this go as, we get closer to 2023? Are we going to have just an array of similar voices, or are we going to have pockets of people in echo chambers? And when people cross the divide, there's just always going to be a lot of abuse and this and that, a lot of insults. And to whose benefit, I'm really not sure. As for the Kenyan girl, I really hope she enjoys the rest of her time in Zimbabwe. I also hope that a lot of other tourists and different people actually come to Zim as well. I love Zimbabwe. I just haven't had the opportunity to be based there for a very long time. I was out of Zim, I think, from about 2014. I was back briefly in 2018. I left after the elections. It was just too toxic and suffocating for me at the time. But I wish the kind of work I've done in Malawi with photography, for example, with promoting travel to the lake, with tangible results. You speak to Makakole Resort, you speak to, the hotels in Salimo, for example, like Sigelege Beach Resort. And they literally say, wow, your pictures have helped, your reviews have helped. We've got people coming in referencing you. And that's amazing. And I would want to do that for Zim. But you're not always going to think, the next time that I go to Great Zimbabwe, and I was there in December, and I take pictures, Great Zimbabwe and Lake Mtiluka, and I post them. How many minutes before people think, oh yeah, well, you're doing this to promote the government? I just don't see how the government benefits from people promoting domestic tourism or regional tourism for that matter. But anyway, this is not meant to be a lecture. It's just meant to open up debate, open up dialogue, open up discussion. Do tell me what you think. Where people write to abuse the Kenyan girl, I certainly think not. Are people right, to abuse any prominent celebrities or prominent tourists who do come and, try to promote different travel destinations in Zim? Tell me what you think. I do know that Kuda Msasiwa Begotten son did echo a view that I think he said that if he had the opportunity and if he could, he would have wanted the Kenyan lady to meet Nelson Chamisa or Fadzai Mayeda so that she could see for herself that these leaders in the opposition, they don't support or condone or benefit from this toxicity and the insults, or that they're not toxic. Something to that to that effect. I'm not quoting him verbatim, by the way. And yeah, I get that. I think in my interactions with people within the MDC, I wouldn't certainly say that a lot of them are toxic. I've never gotten toxic vibes from the late Patson Zamara, who was my brother. I interact with a few others, Richard Mawarire, Netai Maroa, for example, and they're genuinely, legitimately good people who have never seen abuse anybody. But I think at the same time, if the cancer is among the people, it's unfair to burden the leadership with it. It would be great, for example, if the opposition leadership, if Nelson Chamisa, for example, could, condemn toxicity online. But the challenge with that is I don't know if it will have any other effect if people would listen. I've seen it with Julius Malema supporters, for example, with the EFF in South Africa. Malema himself sometimes does toe the line. He does try to get his supporters, to be civil. A few times there's been incidences and people have pretty much gone against him, his own supporters. When he echoed support for the late Jolidi Matongo, the mayor of Joburg, saying, look, this thing that is a Zimbabwean shouldn't be a mayor, I shouldn't be a part of it. His own supporters were giving him stick. And many times when he's spoken about we need open borders in Africa, for example, you've had his own supporters bullying him for it and insulting him. And I think once he responded to a person who said, I'm not going to vote for you. And he said, look, I don't want your vote. If you're going to be this toxic and xenophobic, you can keep your vote. Vote for another party. So if Malema isn't able to do it, even when he calls his own supporters to, when he calls them to order and asks them to toe the line, I think it's a lot to ask to say that Nelson Chamisa could control his own supporters. But yeah, give me your thoughts, and I'll try and do this as frequently as I can. The thing is, I'm also doing a lot of teaching. I teach journalism now here as part of my PhD studies. I also do a lot of camera work, photography, so I do a lot of camera reviews. I do reviews for Canon, I do reviews for Sigma, only recently. So I'll try and fit it in as much as I can. And whatever topic it is, whatever idea you have, let's talk about it. And who knows, maybe we could try do it live one day, have a few guests online. Let's just have this conversation as we, go towards the 2023 elections. I know it can be a bit, confusing because Zimbabwe is always in pretty much election mode, which could be the next topic for our next conversation. Is Zimbabwe always in perpetual election season? We'll see how it goes. But thanks a lot, and we'll see you again soon when we talk about it.